Hey dreamers, welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to be doing something that I get requested about a lot, and I've seen a lot of requests but not a lot of simple solutions. This is how to set up a very simple grapple rope swing type system. And the beauty about this is it works both in 2D and 3D. The same principles apply. This is so quick and easy. Stick around because I'm going over it right now. Okay, this is so crazy simple, it should be illegal, but it isn't, so I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to get out a puppet, and this is what we're going to use to do our stuff with, and I'm going to do just a couple things. I'm going to get out a variable, and I'm going to label this grappling, and this is basically a state of whether or not we are grappling, so really it's just going from 0 to 1. And I'm going to put that into a chip that we'll also label grappling or grappling logic or something. And I'm going to get a tag out, and I'm going to call this player, and I'm going to put this tag inside of the player. I'll put it like in the neck. That's fine. Okay, so I've labeled it player, and inside of here is our grappling logic. Okay, now we need to be able to change that value of grappling when we press a button. So I'm going to wire R1 into a signal manipulator, and I'm going to set this at toggle output it on. So when I press R1 it'll be on, and then I have to press R1 again for it to turn off. I'm going to plug this straight into the value port of a variable modifier, and I'll set the value of grappling continuously while powered. So if we were to take a look at the value coming out of this object here, out of the variable, when I'm playing, it's at 0. If I tap R1, then it's at 1. And then I have to tap R1 again for it to go back to 0. So that's how I'm going to do this. You could put it on a hold. It doesn't really matter. That's just what I'm going to use for this tutorial because it's simple. So we don't need that number displayer. And this variable will also power a keyframe. I'm going to use some precise move here, and I'm just going to rotate this arm upwards so it kind of looks like, he's holding on to a rope. And one other thing I should do with that is turn off the procedural animations. Okay, so I turn those off when the keyframe's on, and I don't want this follow behavior, so I'll get rid of that too. Okay, so that's it for the player. Now how can we, well, just about, but how can we make an actual grapple, a rope swing? It's actually super simple. We can use a connector. There's one built into the game called string, and so whichever one you attach the string to first is the parent object. So we could attach the parent object from here into the player. So what this string does is it has a max length, and we can see the max length there, and that makes it so that the player can swing from that object. Now alternatively, we could have set the player as the parent object, and that works fine too, as long as you remember to go into this block and make it not movable, because by default it will be. And this will work just as well. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so with the string attached to our puppet here, we have a bit of a rope swing, which is cool. However, we need to be able to adjust the string length, because as you can see, it's currently at a static 1.1, and we need this to change depending on where we're grappling to. Now one thing I made is I made this not in this video, but it's just a sculpt with some paint, and inside of it is a tag that's called grapple position. That's all this is. It's just a sculpt with the tag. So really all you need is the tag. I'm just going to use this for ease here. And that's basically where we want this block to go when we decide to grapple. And then we'll measure the distance from the block to the player and set that as the max length on this string connection. So I'll stamp down a microchip, and in here we'll use a variable modifier. We'll get the value and plug that into a selector, And so this will act like a state machine. It'll either do something when we are not grappling, or it'll do something when we are grappling. So by default, when we're not grappling, we just want this block to follow the player around. So I'll set this to look for player, follow the player. I'll set this to max strength or speed or whatever. And in here, we don't want this to be collidable, and we also don't need it to be visible. So I'll just turn visibility off as well. So by default, it's going to follow the player around and won't cause any issues. But then when we are grappling, we want it to go to the grapple position. So this will go to grapple position, just like that. Now we want to make sure that this is kind of in the center here of the block. It looks like it is by default, maybe a little bit off, but good enough. Okay, so if we were to make this sculpture visible again, just so we could see it here, I'll make the sculpture visible so we can see here we are, and it's following us around. Now if I press R1, it's going to go to that grapple position, and because it has a set length of 1.1, where it kind of warped us over there, but we can see how it works. Now to make that transition smoother, we're going to have to take a measurement from this block to the player to determine the appropriate string length so that it doesn't jerk us towards the thing. So I'll get a laser scope out, which is perfect for this. I'm going to set the laser somewhere like in the center of the block like that, and I'll have this look at player, and I'm going to max out the range, which is 1,000 meters. Okay, and you can be specific about how you want to do this, but I'm just going to leave it because by default it will work. And now this hit distance is what we want to use to set to the value of this max length. So if I get out a signal manipulator, we can plug that into here. We could plug this into the max length. So currently it's at 1.1, and when it's following us around, it's very small, right? So we need to be able to have this thing be as long as we want it until we start to grapple. So I'm going to get out a switch, and I'm going to set the on value to 1,000. And we don't have to make this big, we can just make that small. Okay, and so we'll get a node out. Both of these values will come into here, and this is what we'll plug into the this is what we'll plug into the max length. Oh geez, there we go. All right, max length, so that goes into here, max length. So by default it's at 1,000, and if we were to turn this switch off, it would take the value of whatever's coming out of the laser scope. That means when we come into the B state, we'll turn on a keyframe that turns off this switch and freezes the output of this signal manipulator. Now we don't want to do it the second we switch to B because we want this thing to have at least a frame to get into proper position. So I'll get out a small timer, and I'll set this to just be 0.1 seconds. It should be plenty. And when we're in B, we'll start the timer. When we're in A, we'll reset the timer. And when this timer is complete, we will turn on this keyframe. Okay, so now let's see how this looks. I'm going to go into test mode so we can see everything in the chip. So currently we're in A. It's just following the player, and the max string length is set. If I press R1, it travels to that position. This switch gets turned off, and this laser scope has its value frozen. And so now the string value is set to 3.4, and it won't change anymore. So we can see if I delete the floor, the player is stuck at that distance, and they can use that to swing. Now if I were to press R1 again as the player, it would detach me from the rope. So if I press R1, it'll detach me. And that's basically it. The only other thing we need to do is maybe add a little bit of visual. We need to make it apparent that they're swinging, right? So if I come into this thing here, we want the value of Grapple to turn that stuff on, so that way he's holding his arm up. And so what we want to do here is draw a rope from the hand to this point and use a little bit of trickery like that. Going to not use the grid, I'll use tentacle snap, and I will just draw simply from his hand to the center of the block like that. That's fine. And now obviously you'd want to take a little precaution to make sure that that looks really good. We can add some duplicates, for example, and lower the spread to make it a little bit thicker. We can increase the impasto, and you could add some looseness if you want. Now the important thing is that this is physical. You turn the floppiness down, and we want to attach it at both ends. So the first end is attached to the hand, sort of, and the second end will be attached to this block. So if we exit the group, we can attach it to that block. So we can see what this looks like. There's the rope. Obviously at a longer distance you're going to want a shorter one, but we can see that now there's a visual indicator of the rope itself. So what we can do from here is we'll get out one more keyframe. First of all, this keyframe, what we'll have it do is turn the opacity on this painting, all the way up, and then by default it'll be at 0, so it won't show. And this will only be turned on when that is active. And then we'll get one more keyframe here. And inside the painting, what we'll do is we'll set the endpoint to 100%, and by default that will be at 0. And we'll give this a little bit of slow power up here. And you can give it slow power down too. And this will make it look like they're throwing the rope. So here we are. We can see if I press R1, he throws the rope, and it locks the string to the max length. So if I jump into it, we can see we're locked into position as far as we were away from it when we threw it. And now when we press R1 again, it's we're no longer attached. Hey everyone, just a quick reminder, I've started streaming on Twitch. As this video comes out, I'm actually live right now, so you can come check me out here. The link is also in the description below if you need it. And yeah, come hang out with me. Let's make some stuff. I'll see ya. Now obviously, you're going to want to affect how many of these can be on at a time. You might want to have a trigger zone in front of your player that turns these things on so that it doesn't accidentally attach to the wrong thing. I can show you a couple things that I set up in this alternate scene here. I set up a couple different things just to show you some extras here. I have the connector, and by default it's on string, but I also added the ability to change it from string to elastic, which also has kind of a cool effect. Okay, so by default it's on string, right? And if I press L1, then it'll switch to elastic. And so this is what an elastic one would look like, which is kind of wacky and fun. Obviously you got to be a little bit careful about how you do all the strength and stuff. And like I said, it works in both 2D and 3D, so I had the ability to toggle that. But you'll notice that I'm always able to attach to the one I want, and that's because I have a trigger zone that is in front of the player. That's why you'll see that that next one lights up when I'm looking at it, but if I look away, it's no longer lighting up. If I end up passing it, that way we don't accidentally grapple to the wrong thing. So we can see in here, I have this trigger zone, which just looks in front of the player. It looks for the label of grapple point, meaning an object that's labeled that. So I've labeled these grapple point, and they have a detected, and the detected output goes into the tag, and the tag output, meaning the tag is currently being selected, that also powers it. But once neither are true, the tag is off. And of course the tag, the detection also goes into the glow. So that's it, just to give it a little visual indicator. Anyways, I hope this is helpful. Like I said, super quick and easy, and really doesn't take a lot of time at all to set up. I can release this public or remixable or whatever in the Dreamverse, but I really don't think you need it because this is, I don't know, 8 gadgets, 10 gadgets. So super simple, like I said. If this was helpful, please let me know. I've seen this request a lot, and I really hope this helps out everybody who's trying to make grappling stuff inside of their game. If you have any requests for any tutorials that you'd like to see, go ahead and leave a comment down below. If you're new around here and you'd like to subscribe, go ahead and click the button if you'd like. I got a lot of content. I got a lot more coming out all the time. I hope everyone's doing well and staying safe. I'll see you in the next video.